Here we go. Thank you for joining us today on Breaking the Chains. I am your host, Andrea Copeland. I am glad to have with me again today on Breaking the Chains, Pastor Dr. Lehman Bates. He is the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, as well as Dr. Mikhail Baith.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
We know it's been a while before we've been on the air speaking about breaking the chains. And as you have seen, this is part 3, Now What? And if you have been following these series, we have been discussing the African American search for truth. And at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we had some forum discussions, and we've actually done some shows speaking about how we, as African Americans, can assume the responsibility for where we are in our society and what we can do to better ourselves individually, collectively, and make a better community for ourselves. So what is the purpose of breaking the chains? It is about self-awareness, as I said, helping us to find the truth in who we are. We need to accept responsibility of who we are and where we are as a people. So on what I would like to do with Pastor Bates and Dr. Baith is cover what we've talked about in the first two discussions. And if you recall, the first discussion basically talked about what breaking the chains is. We held forums at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and that was part 1. Part 2 spoke about the slavery psyche. And the first part, well, I would just like you, Dr. Bates, to speak about why you decided there was a need for this, breaking the chains, the African American search for truth. Why did you see the need to implement a forum or lecture series in our community?
Well, as we stated in our first broadcast, there is a belief that we are in a season in history, in human history, by which this type of dialogue needs to occur. And not only on this level, but in this type of a dynamic. We see the forces globally, domestically, and even locally coming into place, whereby this type of dialogue is going to be raised to such a level where it can potentially effectuate change. And so we believe we're in that season now.
Okay, is this dialogue just going to be amongst African Americans or with African Americans and other races?
Well, as you know, the whole purpose of this is to start with us as a people.
Okay.
But it certainly is going to expand to sitting in dialogue with other groups, other cultures, and other socioeconomic and even racial disparate groups to discuss how we can come together as a human family. But needless to say, before we can even begin that, we have to deal with our own internal challenges that we have faced over the many years that we've been on these shores.
Okay. And as I stated, Dr. Bates was instrumental in starting this dialogue. And Dr. Baith, you've been here since the beginning of it. What has been your role?
Primarily to identify several of the steps, what people like to call the passages that we talk about. Traditionally, people talk about what they call the middle passage. And traditionally, when we talk about passages, you got 2 different types of understanding. You have